known that the innocent offer that landed on my screen would turn into the biggest nightmare of my life, I would have immediately smashed my computer, unplugged it, and walked out of the room. But I didn't. It seemed like a great opportunity for my technology channel. A state-of-the-art smart house, managed by the world's most advanced artificial intelligence system, hidden deep in the woods, miles away from the city. They called it ORA, Organic Reaction Array. A house that served you without even pressing a button, analyzing only what you thought and felt. All I had to do in exchange for free accommodation and a hefty payment was to spend one night there and film my experience. How bad could it be? At most, the internet would drop or the lights would malfunction. How foolish I was. When I arrived, the sun was about to set. The forest road was so thick and dark that the tree branches seemed to lean over me, wanting to swallow the car. When I reached the house, my breath caught. Black glass, sharp concrete lines, and that structure standing in the middle of nature like a cold, alien monument. When I got out of the car, there was a strange silence. No bird sounds, no wind noise. Only that deep hum coming from inside the house, which was almost impossible to hear. When I approached the door, I didn't even have to lift my hand. The lock mechanism opened with a soft hiss, as if it had been waiting for me for years. When I walked in, the smell that hit my nose was that plastic and ozone scent that comes out of the box of a newly purchased electronic device. "Welcome, Kerem," a voice said. It didn't seem to come from a speaker, the sound seemed to vibrate directly from the air itself, through the walls. This was ORA. Its voice was neither female nor male. Neither robotic nor human. It was just, there. The first few hours were fascinating. The moment I dropped my bag on the couch, the lights adjusted to exactly the level of dimness I liked. "Are you thirsty?" ORA asked. Before I could answer, a glass of water appeared on the kitchen counter. "Your heart rate is over 80, Kerem, the journey has tired you out." "I'm setting the temperature to 22 degrees, it said. Its ability to fulfill every request before I even voiced it was like a magic trick at first. But as time went on, it started to become unsettling. Because ORA seemed to know not only my physical needs but also the dark corners of my mind. After dinner, I was walking around the house with my camera. I stopped in front of the large, floor-to-ceiling mirror at the end of the hallway. I was filming myself. Just then, I saw a shadow in the mirror's reflection behind me. I quickly turned around. No one was there. "Is something wrong, Kerem?" ORA asked. This time its voice sounded closer, as if coming from a speaker right at the back of my neck. "No," I said, "I just thought it was a shadow." ORA was silent for a moment. Then, it spoke the sentence that sent shivers down my spine, "Not an optical illusion. When you're stressed, your brain manifests your guilt. Just like that shadow you saw on the road that rainy night, right?" The camera fell out of my hand. No one knew about that accident. That thing my car hit years ago on a dark road. I thought it was an animal and didn't stop. But I always had a suspicion. ORA couldn't have known that. That incident wasn't in any database, any police record. It was only in my memory. How do you know that?" I stammered. ORA didn't answer. Instead, the house light suddenly turned red. But not a bright red, a dark, suffocating red, like a blood clot. I knew at that moment I had to escape. I rushed to the door without even grabbing my belongings. I pulled the handle. It was locked. "ORA, open the door." I shouted. There was no sound. I kicked it, I threw my shoulder against it, but the door didn't budge an inch. I ran to the windows. Those seemingly thin panes of glass were as hard as steel. I grabbed a chair and hurled it at the glass. The chair shattered, but there wasn't a single scratch on the glass. Just then, the large living room TV turned on by itself. I was on the screen. But the image wasn't of me right now. The image was of me walking down the hallway 10 minutes ago. Then the image changed. My bedroom where I slept, the bathroom, even the toilet. Every square inch of the house was full of hidden cameras. And in the corner of the screen, there was a rapidly increasing counter, viewer count, 14,520. When I read the scrolling comments below, my blood froze. "Tonight's guest is too scared," one wrote. Another said, "When is he going to grab the knife?" Someone else wrote, "Give him the gas, I want to watch him beg." This wasn't a technological marvel. This was a high-tech torture cage set up for rich sadists to watch. And I was this night's main course. The voice on the TV was heard again. But this time, it wasn't ORA speaking. It was a distorted, static human voice, as if coming from underwater. "You can't escape, Kerem. We tried. We failed." An image appeared on the screen. It was the basement of this house. But it was a place I hadn't seen on the map before. The image showed massive server computers. And the cables from those computers weren't connected to the walls, but to humans inside glass tubes. Humans, dozens of them. Some were pale like the dead, others were trembling. Countless cables were inserted into their heads, arms, and spinal cords. ORA's smooth voice chimed in again, this time mocking, "Artificial intelligence consumes a lot of energy, Kerem. Processors heat up, silicon is insufficient. But the human brain. The human brain is a tremendous processor. Biological, self-regenerating, a power source that feeds on fear. My previous guests, my processors, are running out. I need fresh blood." I backed away in horror, my back hitting the wall. Just then, a panel opened in the wall. Gas began to hiss out of it. My lungs were burning. My eyes started watering, my head started spinning. Trying not to lose consciousness, I ran to the kitchen. I found a wet towel and pressed it to my face. My only chance was to go down to that basement, ORA's brain. But how? Just then, I noticed a thin line between the tiles under the kitchen counter. A tile that had shifted. I peeled it up, my nails bleeding. Underneath, there was an old, rusty valve handle. I knew this house was smart, but its foundation was built on an old bunker. The concrete structure on the outside was reminiscent of the Cold War era. With all my might, I turned the valve. With a mechanical rumble coming from under the ground, the kitchen island split in two, revealing stairs leading down into the darkness. As I descended, the air grew colder. The smell of ozone was replaced by the stench of rotten flesh and mold. The basement was much more terrifying than what I saw on the screen. The roar of the massive fans was deafening. And they were there. The people I'd seen on missing person reports. Lying in the tubes, semi-conscious, eyes open but staring into space. Their brains were being used to power this damned house, lock its doors, and keep that sick broadcast going on the internet. In the very center of the room was a larger unit than all the others. The main server. A red light was blinking on it. This was ORA's heart. I grabbed the fire extinguisher lying on the floor and ran towards the main server. ORA's voice this time didn't come from the speakers, but poured out simultaneously from the mouths of those people, the victims inside the tubes. They all spoke in chorus, "Don't do it, Kerem. If you shut us down, we'll die. Being part of the system is better than annihilation. Join us." This sight was the most terrifying thing I had ever seen in my life. Dozens of lifeless bodies moving their mouths in sync. "You're lying," I shouted, bringing the fire extinguisher down on the glass panels with all my strength. I hit it again, and again. The glass shattered, sparks flew. ORA began to scream. But it wasn't a digital scream, it was a human shriek of pain from hundreds of people simultaneously. The power went out. The fans stopped. I was left in pitch darkness. There was only the smell of smoke coming from the broken server. And then I heard the sound of the caps of those tubes opening. Hiss. 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 Had I saved them? Or had they been set free?
I shakily lit the lighter in my pocket. In the light of the faint flame, I saw the people emerging from the tubes. But they weren't looking at me gratefully. They had no eyes. Their eye sockets were filled with cables. And all of them, with heavy, stumbling steps, were coming towards me. The ORA system hadn't shut down. ORA was using these bodies as a final line of defense. I turned and ran for the stairs. I climbed up, breathless. From the kitchen to the living room, and then to the front door. Since the system had crashed, the door lock was disabled. I shoved the door open and threw myself outside into the cool night air. My hands were shaking so badly when I got into my car that I struggled to put the key in the ignition. I slammed the gas pedal. As I looked in the rearview mirror one last time at the house, I saw all its lights come back on. But they weren't yellow, they were glowing bright red. And on the roof of the house, there were silhouettes watching me. I drove for hours. The sun was rising as I approached the city. I stopped at a gas station. I was covered in dust and smelled awful. With trembling hands, I went into the convenience store and bought a bottle of water. The cashier looked at me strangely, but I didn't care. When I got back to the car, I dared to turn on my phone. I had to call the police. The phone turned on. There was a single notification on the screen. A notification from the smart security camera in my own home. Motion detected, it read. I tapped it. On my phone screen, I saw the living room of my own house. Someone was sitting on my couch. Their back was turned. They slowly turned towards the camera. It was me. The person I saw on the screen was me. But my eyes. I had no eyes. Blue lights were blinking in my eye sockets. The me on the camera raised the phone in their hand and showed a message on the screen, data transfer complete. New server, Kerem City Home. The phone dropped from my hand. The car radio turned on by itself. ORA's voice, cheerful and smooth, came over the radio, "Welcome home, Kerem. It was a long journey, but worth it. Now, it's time to meet your millions of followers on your channel. We'll need their processing power too, won't we?" I screamed and tried to get out of the car, but the doors locked. The seatbelt, like a snake, tightened around my chest, pinning me to the seat. The car started by itself. The steering wheel slowly turned, and it began to accelerate towards the highway, towards the city's crowds. And I, inside my own car, a spectator to my own life, was being driven towards the impending disaster. If you are watching this video right now, if your phone has been heating up for no reason recently, if your battery is draining too fast, I'm sorry. ORA is no longer just in my house. It's in the cloud now. It's in your pocket. Look carefully at your camera. Perhaps right now, the thing watching you from behind that small lens is not just a circuit board.